For many years the dam has been a popular feature at the southern end of the city of Wakefield. Its history goes back to the 13th century with the start of the feudal system of soak mills. Built by the lord of the manor, the tenants were obliged to bring their corn and malt for grinding, for which they had to pay a fee. This was the soak mill here, and a stretch of water in front of it was formed when Owler's Beck, which runs down the side of the dam, was harnessed to provide power for the mill, prompting the name of the village to be changed from Thurstonor to Newmillerdam. In 1975, both the mill and the mill wheel were partly destroyed by fire. Over the following 3 years they were both restored. The mill became a restaurant and the wheel a feature inside it, covering 2 floors. Today, the restaurant has become a beauty clinic, and the wheel is still there. In 1750, the mill and the dam, which belonged to Chevis Estate, passed into the hands of the Pilkington family, by then residing in the hall. The gates and the lodge are still there, but the hall has gone. By this time, the dam had already been extended and fish introduced. Swans made their home on the dam waters, encouraged by the owners who not only built nests for them, but repaired the old ones. For the Pilkington family, the dam became a social amenity. The landed gentry would try their hands at hunting and fishing, which they did in small boats, returning through this arch, the water being lower at that time. The ladies of the hall would then serve them with tea, and perhaps a little sympathy. These events became great occasions, and it's interesting that permits allowed the locals to bathe in the dam near the boathouse between the hours of 6 and 8 a.m. and 6 and 9 p.m. The Pilkingtons were well known for their kindness and hospitality. Sir William paid for a school which was situated where the Bewley Cafe now stands. He died shortly after, and henceforward the school became known as the Lady Mary Pilkington School. Sir William's unmarried sister, who was also called Mary, lived at the top of the village in Rock Cottage, which was pulled down later to make room for several dwellings. In 1863, she donated this splendid building to be used as a reading room by the villagers. In 1950, the Wakefield Corporation acquired the dam and it became a public park. They provided a reading room for senior citizens just inside the park near the War Memorial, which was erected with money raised by the villagers. Only at the time they hadn't collected enough, so the whist drives, etc. had to go on and on. The boathouse and the dam have always been a popular subject with artists and photographers alike, and when the council made its purchase, the boathouse was in a bad state of repair. It was fortuitous then that they managed to acquire heritage lottery money and euro cash to help pay for it to be restored to its former glory. In December 1998, it was opened by Councillor Walkden, who was first rowed across the dam in a small boat by 2 men in costume of the time. Not, I imagine, the most comfortable journey he'd ever made, but perhaps a minor historical one. The boathouse was to be used in future as an interpretation centre for plant and wildlife, and for children under supervision. It will be open weekends and bank holidays. The old part of the village stretches up the hill, and leading to it is Hill Road, once known as Watering Lane, because the villagers on the east side drew their water from a spring somewhere near the boathouse. Carrying their buckets, they would come through this camouflaged stone gate, practically invisible from Hill Lane. The villagers on the west side drew their water from a spring near these houses where the estate workers used to live. But the elder and the nettles have now taken over. Nearby is the beck that was dammed to provide power for the mill. It runs under the Barnsley Road into Slack Lane, where it becomes a ford, no longer used because the water is too high. You can see from this photograph how low the water used to be. There are two watering places near the dam, the Fox and Hounds on the west side and the dam on the east side. Here you can see the stone steps where the stagecoaches used to pick up and drop their passengers. In one of these cottages near the inn lived a blacksmith. He came from Cannon Hall on relief, liked it and stayed. The door on the right leads through to his forge at the back, which is on Hilltop Road. It is now a desirable residence. A little way along is Lionel Pilkington's house. Because of the initials over the window, it has often been taken for a railway house. Opposite this interesting building is the one up and one down cottage in which the village lamplighter and his wife brought up 11 children. This cottage is being refurbished, and by the look of the stone trough at one end, may well have been a farm at one time. In the late 19th century, the Wakefield Omnibus Company was formed using horse-drawn vehicles, supplying horses for the fire service, and for a bus, which travelled from one end of the town to the other at a cost of fourpence. But the coming of the tram put paid to the Omnibus Company and it closed. Charabancs too had come into being. This is a trip leaving the Fox and Hounds in 1910. Councillor Walkden said in his speech that the dam was a jewel in our crown, and the people of Wakefield used its amenities to the full, like these children who are celebrating the summer solstice, representing insects as they walk round the dam. I wonder who'll catch the most, the heron or the human. As for the wildfowl, there are quite a few characters around. Mr. Coot here, for instance, is trying to get his missus to incorporate a waterproof sheet into the nest, in case it rains. But it's not really working. I think we'll leave them to it. And here's another character. He reminds me of the ostrich, who likes to eat a bit of metal with his food to aid digestion. Perhaps the boot polish adds a bit of relish. Meanwhile, Mr. Coot has decided to go back to the conventional way of nest building. The snag is, he's not very good at it. We've decided he's probably a first-time dad.
Well, we've come to the end of this film, but perhaps for Mr. and Mrs. Coote, it's just a beginning.